Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Welcome back to Fallout New Vegas, where today we're going to be going over another build for Fallout New Vegas. It's been a little while since I did one of these, and I have gotten quite a few comments asking if I could bring this series back, which, yeah, I'll be sure to be adding more to this. So today we're going to be talking about arguably one of the strongest builds in New Vegas. Now, we've already covered quite a few really strong ones, with like the Cowboy loadout and the Sniper loadout. Today we're going to be covering the Shotgun loadout, which is really powerful and really easy. So if you're having a rough time in New Vegas, try out this one, or if you really want to try out like the very hardcore difficulty, I would say this one is fantastic. Go for it because it's very powerful. So first things first, as always, we have to pick our special stats. For this build, I decided to go with this, so I'm going with 6 strength, 5 perception, 9 intelligence, 1 charisma, 6 intelligence, 7 agility, and 6 luck. Now, this could actually be changed around quite a lot. The strength, I just went with 6 because it seemed like a decent amount. You could actually go for less than this. The most amount of strength that you're going to need for any of the weapons here is 7. So if you plan on getting the strength implant, that takes it up to 7 already. But then you can also get reinforced spine from Old Wolf Blues, taking you up to effectively 9 strength that way, and you don't really need that much. Like I said, 7 is kind of the max. The only reason I took 5 perception, which you could actually drop entirely if you didn't want it for this build, is just to go for better crits if you would really like that. But honestly, that's not necessary either for this build. Crits don't benefit shotguns as much in New Vegas as they did in Fallout 3. So this is kind of your call. 9 endurance, I would kind of recommend this just so that you're extra tanky at the start, and it allows you to grab all of the implants if you want, so that's pretty cool. 1 charisma, if you were going to go with companions, then potentially drop like strength and perception down a bit to pump this one up if you'd like. 6 intelligence, you don't really need any more than this, especially if you plan on grabbing like comprehension or educated, which we do have quite a few open slots for perks here, so that would be perfectly fine. You don't even need that though if you plan on doing book hunting though. Then we're going with 7 agility just so that we can reload our shotguns faster. That is kind of a big deal because we are going to want to stay in the fight as often as we can, and having to wait for the reload animation does kind of suck, especially for the early game shotguns where you usually only get 1 or 2 shells. You don't have a fast reload overall, and it helps for the later shotguns too, like the hunting shotgun and the lever action shotgun, since they have to reload 1 round at a time. And then 6 luck just so that we can grab different perks. You could go with more for this though if you want to go for more of a shotgun crit build, or if you just want to have like an easy time at the casinos, that's perfectly fine too. For traits, I decided to go with skilled and fast shot. Fast shot makes it so your shotguns are less accurate, but that generally doesn't matter because you could always load your shotguns with slugs and they're pretty accurate then. So if you're really worried about that, maybe don't go with fast shot. You could probably swap this one out for build to destroy if you want more damage, or if you want to go with the crit shotgun build. And then skill, just because it gives us more points towards everything. It's also arguably the best trait in the game, so I decided to go with that because we already are going with a really strong build. We might as well make it even stronger. For tag skills, I decided to tag guns, repair, and survival. Survival is honestly your choice. Guns and repair, I would say, are really good for this build, since guns just make it so you can max out your shotguns faster, and since all shotguns are just ballistic weapons, not a big deal. We don't need a different attacking type. And then repair, so we can keep our shotguns fixed up. It'll also help us go for jury rigging later on, so we can repair our shotguns easier with pretty much any of the two-handed weapons, with the exception of the sawed-off, since then we can repair it with any of the pistols pretty much. Survival helps, especially if you want to go for some really strong early game perks like Rad Child 2. First thing I would do with this build upon leaving Good Springs is immediately loot all of Good Springs and sell all of your stuff to Chet as soon as you can. This can allow you to buy a couple of things. You could potentially buy a single shot shotgun, as this is probably going to be your very first shotgun that you can find, assuming that you don't have the other DLCs which give you the sturdy caravan shotgun. We'll talk about the weapons here in just 1 second. But single shot shotguns are extremely cheap to buy. Chet can have them, and it is nice to grab a couple of these before you actually leave Good Springs. You could also buy all of his 20 gauge shells out, which pretty much any merchant can sell 20 gauge shells so long as you have the Gunrunner's Arsenal DLC, because that makes it so there's more ammo in the game, and there's a lot of different shotgun shells that you can load into this. That is actually one of the really big advantages to shotguns really all throughout the game, because you do have access to a lot of different ammos, and merchants tend to sell a lot of it, so you shouldn't really be running out of ammo at any point. Your bigger problem is probably going to be getting like weapon repair kits to fix your shotguns, or other shotguns to fix up your already existing shotguns. Shotguns come in 2 gauges. You can either have the 12 gauge or the 20 gauge. 20 gauge shotgun is generally more towards the start. This is like the single shot shotgun, the caravan shotgun, and the lever action shotgun. Well, as 12 gauge is more the end game shotguns. This is the hunting shotgun, the sawed off double barrel, and the riot shotgun. Another real big advantage that you can do right at the very start of Fallout New Vegas is go over to the workbenches, and you can actually convert all of your standard shotgun shells to something like shotgun magnum rounds, which is better. You get more damage from that. They do break your gun a little bit faster, but The extra damage that you get, I think, is totally worth it, and I'd recommend that you start converting your shells into better shells, whichever shells that you prefer. You can also pick up things like slugs, which make it so you have effective long range, because even the single shot shotgun at the start is very accurate, and you load it with slugs. It actually doesn't have very much spread, so you can use this kind of as a longer range rifle. It's not going to be as great as a dedicated rifle for super long ranges, because there isn't any shotgun that has like a scope on it, but it should be good enough. And also be on the lookout for a couple other 20 gauge shells from different merchants. Again, slugs are pretty solid, magnum rounds are pretty good. I usually don't use the standard rounds because I'll just convert them to magnum rounds unless I don't have anything else. The buckshot rounds are pretty good as well. They make it so you do more damage per pellet, but you have less overall pellets. That can be useful against armored enemies, and then you also have those buckshot magnum rounds, and you also have pulse slugs for the 20 gauges that can be useful against robots. Not a huge deal unless you plan on rushing Old World Blues early on, because usually there isn't a whole lot of robots in New Vegas. As for the early game shotguns, you pretty much have two of them that you can pick between, where you have the caravan shotgun and you have the single shot shotgun. The single shot shotgun does do the most amount of damage of these two. It does weigh a decent amount, but it's got pretty decent item HP. It does good damage per shot, and it has very tight spread. It's one of the tightest spreads out of any of the shotguns, so it's not going to be a bad weapon. There's also one that you can steal within Good Springs if you go over to a house, so you can grab that and grab some loot. It's also not uncommon to find these in graves, so you might get one whenever you go to dig up like the Good Springs graveyard. You might get one there. Again, Chet can sell these and they're usually dirt cheap. They're like 40 to 50 caps, even if you have like no barter whatsoever. So be on the lookout for that, and if you ever run into the problem of potentially finding more of these, you can probably go back to Good Springs, wait a couple days, and then check Chet's store, and he might have more of them. So single shot shotgun is a pretty good option. If you do have the DLCs, then you could start out with the sturdy caravan shotgun, which is potentially better, as this one does do higher DPS than something like the single shot shotgun. It's actually tied with the single shot in terms of damage per shot, but you do have two barrels now. It does have a lot more spread though, so the effective damage per second might not be as much, at least at somewhat medium to longer ranges, because the sturdy caravan shotgun is actually tied with the most amount of spread, where it has 4 spread, same as like the sawed-off double barrel, whereas the sturdy caravan shotgun has 1.4 spread. So yeah, you have a lot more of a dispersion there. It is overall pretty strong though, but you probably don't want to be sticking with the caravan shotgun as you get further into the game and as you level up some more. Mostly because it does not count as a shotgun for the shotgun perks, and that's kind of important. You do definitely want those. And speaking of the perks, here's the ones that I would pick for this build. Now at level 2, I'd probably recommend that you take rapid reload. This will just make it so you can reload the shotguns even quicker. That is super nice, especially in the early game for reloading, like the sturdy caravan shotgun or the single shot shotgun. If you find a regular caravan shotgun and you don't have the DLCs, you could also swap off your single shot shotgun for it. I would just say take whatever has the most amount of HP. That's probably the best, so it just doesn't break too frequently on you. At level 4, you could honestly take whatever you'd like. It's your call. Rad Child is going to be the strongest perk that you could take at level 4, but that requires you to have 70 survival, and you pretty much would have had to pump all of your early game levels into that. I think it's totally worth it and does make your build really powerful, but it's your choice at level 4. You might want to go with Educated or Comprehension. Those two can be really good for this build too. At level 6, we do get our first shotgun perk, which is Shotgun Surgeon, and this one is really strong. This one basically makes it so every shotgun shell that you fire has armor piercing in it. It just ignores 10 damage threshold, which is a lot. That basically ignores almost all light armors and some medium armors. Won't ignore heavy armor entirely, but it still ignores quite a bit, so that just makes it so you're even more consistent with the shotguns, and it does make them very powerful. At level 8, I'd recommend that you grab Cowboy. This is just for the lever action shotgun, since it benefits from that. Sadly, Grunt doesn't affect any of the shotguns. Cowboy's pretty good, especially for the lever action in the mid-game where you can probably be getting these. And since we only really have 2 shotgun types to pick from, with the 20 gauge and the 12 gauge, the lever action is the best 20 gauge option. It does the most, especially with Cowboy. So yeah, you're probably going to end up grabbing that anyway. At level 10, we have probably our strongest perk with End Stay Back. This comes in the Dead Money DLC, and this one is insanely strong, and it's what makes shotguns so broken. This one makes it so every single pellet that you fire from your shotgun has a 10% chance of knocking down an enemy. That's a lot, especially if you want to be taking like the Magnum rounds that fire out like 7 pellets per shot. There's a very high chance that you knock down enemies with this. And when an enemy's knocked down, especially at a distance, it's really easy to bully them with the shotguns. This makes it so basically every shotgun can be pretty overpowered. You could argue like the double barrel and the single shot shotguns maybe aren't as powerful as some of the others, especially like the riot shotgun. But this definitely makes it easy mode, even if you're playing on like the very hardcore mode, you can wreck absolutely everything thanks to this perk. There's also the hand loader perk that I recommend you grab too. This one's nice just so that you can make the custom shotgun shells. Makes the 12 gauge and the 20 gauge gets even more ammo. And then also at level 14, I would recommend that you pick up jury rigging just so that you can repair all of your stuff. After that, your build is pretty much set and you can go with whatever you want. Anything that you build from this point onward is not really going to matter. Your core build is going to be incredibly overpowered. You could make it even more overpowered with certain perks like Rad Child, like I said, that makes you virtually immortal and you never have to use healing items. You could go with Them's Good Eating, which makes it so you're insanely rich and you have the best healing items. And you could also go with like Implant GRX so that you can have the Sandeva stand too, because why not? You might as well be even more overpowered than what you already are. And again, you could go with crits in this too if you want to go with finesse and better crits, just so that you can really bully stuff. This shotgun build is insanely overpowered. Once you get into the mid-game, you'll also have more access to guns. Like I said, the lever action shotgun, you can get one at Boulder City inside of the saloon there. You will have to steal that one, but it's like on your way through the main quest anyway, so you can just pick that one up. Merchants might sell them too, and you might find them on dead prospectors. It's a little bit rare. You can also rush hunting shotguns in this too, since there is at least 2 hunting shotguns, actually a couple more, but 2 hunting shotguns in particular that I always remember. There's one down at the nuclear test site, but you have to get through the ghouls there, and there is a decent amount of radiation, so that can be kind of scary early on. The easier way is actually just to head up to Vegas itself, and then head up to a farm. There will actually be a shotgun in the back of this truck here. It's nearly broken, so you're probably going to want to use weapon repair kits to fix it up, but the hunting shotgun is very strong. It's probably my favorite shotgun in Fallout New Vegas, where this is a pump action shotgun, holds 5 rounds, has good range, has good spread, reloads fairly fast, and does a lot of damage per shot. It's a 12 gauge, so you also get access to all the 12 gauge ammo, which is even more versatile than the 20 gauge ammo, where with 12 gauge you get the regular buckshot, you get beanbag rounds, which are more just for knocking enemies down. You get the coin shot, which is actually stronger, but you kind of have to make that yourself, and I don't know if it's always worth it. Magnum rounds, which are fantastic. Slugs for shooting at longer range, buckshot for more damage per pellet but less pellets overall, same amount of total damage though. Magnum buckshot rounds, if you want to have even more damage on there, you can put Dragon's Breath rounds into this, which is very fun. I do like that one a lot. You can also load this with flechettes or pulse slugs too, so you can even have some armor breaking or even more armor breaking thanks to the shotgun surgeon and flechettes. Pulse slugs can work good against robots. With just the 20 gauge and the 12 gauge, you're kind of set for just about everything. So you're probably going to have something like a hunting shotgun be your go-to weapon, or the lever action shotgun be your go-to weapon for dealing with most enemies. If there's any really big enemies that you have to deal with though, you can always swap over to the riot shotgun, which there's not a whole lot of places to get guaranteed riot shotguns. At the bottom of Vault 34 there is. You probably are just better off buying this from like the gun runners. You won't have any problem bullying everything up to that point to get plenty of money, so you're going to be able to buy a riot shotgun. And that one is incredibly powerful. It does do less damage than the hunting shotgun per shot, but the DPS is insane. It has a magazine reload and it holds 12 rounds. You load this with really whatever ammo you want. I usually go with like just the Magnum rounds or the buckshot Magnum rounds, and you can pretty much just 1v1 anything. You can really like 1v10 anything. When I did my 10 times enemy run in New Vegas, the riot shotgun with End Stay Back turned the game into easy mode. It was not difficult at all. The only problem I had at that point was buying enough shotgun shells so that I didn't run through them entirely, and making sure that my riot shotgun didn't break. If you can get over those 2 dilemmas, then absolutely nothing else is a dilemma to you. So yeah, very, very powerful weapon overall. And also, if you need to sneak in a weapon, there is at least one shotgun that you can sneak in, that being the standard sawed-off double-barrel shotgun, which is also in 12 gauge. It does fire out both barrels whenever you shoot it, so it's not necessarily the best overall for most cases, but if you do need to sneak it into places, it's really good. It works really well. It also has the most spread, unsurprisingly. You can't sneak the unique one in, though. The Big Boomer, I would just recommend that you don't even bother with. It's not that much better than a sawed-off double barrel, and since you can't sneak it into a casino, I don't really see the point in using it most of the time, since the other shotguns are generally better. You might also want to upgrade your hunting shotgun at some point as well, since you can upgrade this with like a tube extension, which makes it so you hold 8 rounds rather than 5 rounds in it, which is really good, and you could also upgrade it with a choke, which makes it more accurate. You don't necessarily need that though. It's already quite accurate, has pretty good spread already, but if you want to go even further with that, you can. There is also the unique hunting shotgun with a dinner bell that you can get from doing the quest Bleed Me Dry. Probably one of the longest and probably one of the most difficult quests in Fallout New Vegas, but a really cool reward for a shotgun. It's actually maybe not as strong as just a modded out hunting shotgun, but that's kind of for you to decide whether or not you want that. So overall, how strong would the shotgun build be in New Vegas? Very strong. It's arguably like the strongest build in New Vegas, kind of. There's a lot of really, really strong builds in New Vegas, but this one has got to be one of the easiest and one of the most forgiving builds that you could do. I also didn't really talk about armor, but realistically, you can put whatever armor you want with this. If enemies can't fight back, it doesn't matter. If you're completely naked, you'll be fine. I decided to go with like Elite Riot gear on my build, but that's just one of my favorite armors, and I think it's one of the strongest armors. You could reasonably go with like a light armor if you want to go with like Joshua Graham's armor or Ulysses Duster or something, or even like Sierra Madre armor. Those ones are fine. For medium armors, again, the Elite Riot gear or the Advanced Riot gear works just fine with these. Heavy armor, probably like the Remnant's Power armor just because it's the tankiest. All of them are perfectly fine with this build. You don't even really need armor. You don't need much with this build. Get yourself some 12 gauge, get yourself some 20 gauge, get the lever action shotgun fairly early on, and then get yourself like the hunting shotgun and like the riot shotgun, and you're kind of set. At that point, you can just go to whatever vendor you want to. Most vendors sell 12 gauge and 20 gauge, and just buy whatever stock you would like from there. As well as you can convert your stock over to different ammunitions as well if you want to. If you guys would like to see like my version of the strongest build in New Vegas, feel free to ask. I still have to do this for quite a few other builds too. And if you have any builds in particular that you would like to ask for, I can do those as well. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. Hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.